Kevin Bowen here. Don't forget to listen to The Fan now on 93.5 or 107.5 FM, and check out our latest coverage online at 1075thefan.com.
Welcome back. Kevin's Corner, late June edition is coming at you right now. I'm Kevin Bowen, Chris Presley in studio. We are less than 1 month away from Colts training camp. As we record this, the schedule for training camp will be announced later today. So we'll have that up on the website at 1075 The Fan, and some joint practices with the Carolina Panthers in there. And always good to be up at Grand Park. We will have a lot of coverage for you over those 3 weeks, written-wise, podcast-wise, and video as well. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Getting ready for the holiday weekend.
Yeah, happy 4th of July, and safe travels to everyone out there traveling. And, yeah, man, I feel like when we get to July, it's just like, here we go. Here we go. So we'll have 4 podcasts between now and the start of training camp. And today I kind of want to hit on nothing screams more late June than this topic. But as always, we'll have Twitter questions. But I feel like over the past few months, the hype train for Jonathan Taylor, in my mind, it's kind of gaining.
Right.
Gaining some steam. And it's interesting to me when I look at the national angle, Chris, that I don't necessarily feel like it's maybe that high. So I want to hit on that. We'll talk a little bit of that. And then we kind of had a good variety of Twitter questions that I wanted to touch on as well. One thing that I want to get to before we get into the Taylor aspect to it and the Twitter questions, I had Mike Wells on the morning show today, filling in all week from 7 to 10 a.m. on our airwaves, and asked, Wells the question about playing starters in the preseason. Does he think, Carson Wentz should play more? And Wells said no. He feels like the joint practices you get a lot out of. Those are controlled environments. You can get a whole lot out of them. Obviously, you can get your starters on one field, you can get your twos on the other. You can get, you can get your, offense on one field, defense on the other. Those things are invaluable. It's great stuff, but it is still practice, and that's why I point to. I think we had a question last week, Chris. Is I am just a firm believer in you need to play some frontline guys in the preseason. And there's this fine line, I think, especially in today's NFL. You're so nervous about injuries and walking that balance and walking that tightrope of knocking rust off and getting guys acclimated and all that. But at the same time, you want to try and protect as much as you can these guys to stay healthy. So I'm really going to be plugged into how Frank Reich handles that.
Yeah.
And I think when you see the schedule as is, those first 5 games, you're playing Tennessee early in the year, both those meetings actually early in the year as well. I'd probably side more on the thinking of, I want to see Carson Wentz without a red jersey on in the month of August. And again, I know that goes against Frank Reich's thinking, so I agree with Wells on that aspect, but I am a big believer in that we got to see a little bit,
right?
A little bit more. Where do you stand? Are you more of rest? I don't care about the preseason.
No, so listening to you this morning on the morning show here locally, you had Mike Wells on, and he was kind of opposite of you.
Yeah,
he felt
was,
more,
definitely.
It's going to be, I want him more in practice, especially with the Carolina Panthers coming in. The only thing that I was going to add to that, obviously right now, and we will talk about this as we get much closer, but YouTube does a really good job now with all the NFL front offices having production teams putting together kind of behind-the-scenes looks at teams. So I found myself down the rabbit hole looking at Denver's and Carolina's, and Carolina's had some great pieces. So I do think, regardless of what side Frank takes, whether it's yours, Wells, or a little bit of the medium there, Carolina is going to, I think, give us some good practice reps for those guys.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to act like that stuff is not valuable. It is valuable, but when you play the quarterback position and Brian Burns isn't going to hit me here. He's coming off the edge. Like, there's just that innate feeling of like, I am safe. I'm trying to think of some other analogy in another sport. I mean, it'd almost be like if you're a batter getting in the batter's box and you know there's some sort of netting in front of you, you're not going to get hit. So that ball that's on the inside corner, you know, you're going to feel confident about it. That ball kind of thrown up at your head, you're not worried about that in the back of your mind. So, again, we got the schedule up on the website by the time that you're listening to this, and then we'll come back and touch on that. But I do want to get in the Jonathan Taylor MVP talk. All right, let me start here, Chris, because obviously anytime you say it, running back MVP, it's a bit of an outlandish comment. So I say that, and then I say, please listen to my next, 5 minutes on this topic. But so obviously Prop Swap helping us out with the pod earlier this year, and you look at the odds for MVP right now, Chris. Jonathan Taylor odds. First off, you got Mahomes 4-1, the heavy favorite.
Right.
Rodgers and Josh Allen, I think I saw it 10-1. The first running back you get to is Derrick Henry, 17th best odds overall at 50-1 odds. So honestly, if you're laying down money, well, shit, might as well lay down some on Henry. You've got Jonathan Taylor all the way at 39th best odds, which is 125-1. So we're talking $10 to win $1,250. As long as we've got voters that are not just like anti-running back, those odds are astonishing to me.
Yeah.
That they are that big of a long shot. You got Carson Wentz at 40-1 odds.
I was going to ask, you're looking at him right now?
Yeah.
So it's pretty much every quarterback in the league
Right,
goes ahead
right.
of the running backs?
Literally. I mean, yeah, you got, Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook and some of the other running
Right.
backs in the league in between Henry and Taylor. But, Jonathan Taylor finished third in the NFL in rushing last year. And so what I'm getting at is this is an elite player that I think will be elite and remain at that upper echelon, if not one of the best running backs in the league. And yes, a lot of it will come down to, do voters actually want to vote for a running back, which even last year, Derrick Henry, I don't think got a single vote, if I'm not mistaken. Adrian Peterson's the last one to win MVP. He had over 2,000 yards in 2012, and him coming back from the injury, things like that certainly played a huge factor in it. But what I'm getting at with Taylor, and I wrote a story after the season about this. You look at what he did the second half of the season. He closed the year, I think it was 8 straight games with at least 74 yards rushing. That is consistent production that no running back in the NFL achieved last year. If you look at the last 3 years, Zeke did it once, Derrick Henry did it once. So that's pretty rare. Yeah. And yeah, obviously he had 250 whatever against Jacksonville in the season finale. I'm not expecting that week in and week out. Sure, if you're going to win the MVP, you're going to have a game or two of that. That's just comes with the nature of it. But when you put him in that rarefied air and now you extrapolate that out to potentially 17 games, health has never been an issue for him. Obviously, quote, oh boy, Kevin Bowen just jinxed us, blah, blah, blah. But incredibly healthy in college. Last year, the only game he missed was the COVID close contact. I don't even think he missed a game in college, to be honest with you. And think about how much he was carrying the ball at Wisconsin. If you look at his season as a rookie, he got benched twice, still had 11 rushing touchdowns, and still was third in the NFL in rushing. Now, I know you got Marlon Mack, you got Nyheim Hines. There are carries and touches to be divvied up here. But for those of you that are in to the buy an MVP ticket this time of year and potentially sell it at some point when the odds start to decrease majorly, to me, Taylor just jumps off the page at that. I really feel like he needs to be the focal point of this offense. You want to lean on him. Carson Wentz should want that. The Colts have a few more games in primetime this year. That should help his case as well. And yes, last year, Derrick Henry, 2,000 yards. And the fact that he doesn't get a single MVP vote, that is worrisome. So Taylor's going to have to really, really do something. But I think the combination of primetime, I love the Christmas matchup against the Cardinals. It's like the Heisman guy that gets the big juicy matchup late in the year to really help his cause on a national scale of here's college game day and all of that. But I don't know, Chris. I might be ludicrous. This might be a ludicrous statement. I know it's late June and we're really grasping at straws here, but I just think we are in a national scale, we're a bit overlooking Jonathan Taylor.
You might have seen it this week. I don't know if it was Pro Football Focus, and granted, that's not just because, but a major reason is because he's on his rookie deal. But they put together an their overall NFL team if they could pick each position and keep it under the salary cap.
Oh, wow.
Darius Leonard was their middle linebacker, and then Jonathan Taylor was their running back.
Yeah. And it goes back to something we talked about last April, Chris, when Taylor was drafted, of like, you have got to cash in on this guy on his rookie deal.
Mm-hmm.
When you draft running backs, you can't wait around. And the Colts have done that with Nyheim Hines. And, he's, I think, in the rare group of people that deserve a second contract at that position. But, I go back a few years ago, I think Todd Gurley got votes for the MVP. And look, it's going to take Mahomes looking like a human being, which, that I don't know if you want to bet on that. But basically, Gurley had, I think he combined for 2,100 yards, which it sounds like a ton, and it is. But like if Taylor is healthy, I think he would sniff around 2,000 total yards. And I want to say Gurley had 19 touchdowns. That's a big number. Taylor had 11, and again, benched twice. So, yes, it's going to take a good amount. You worry about Mac and Hines, but it's $10 freaking, people.
Yeah.
You know what? Throw it out there. And if you get to the end of September and Jonathan Taylor's ripped off a couple 150-yard games, you might sell that ticket.
I was just about to say the same thing.
Now you're really cashing in on it. I talk about the Christmas matchup, and now that I think about it, you got that against Arizona is that matchup. The week before, you could be playing New England on that Saturday. That game is still to be announced. So,
right.
If you get a prime timer, then all of a sudden Jonathan Taylor's going to have a couple bigger games to potentially get on the map there. So.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's probably a big time long shot. I mean, hell, I'd put a little money on Henry. It's one of those things that I really loved how the Heisman this year, we finally saw the receiver get his due. Like Devontae Smith, so many times you just like, oh, stud wideout, that means his quarterback gets all the Heisman votes.
Yeah.
So I was appreciative of the Heisman voters that looked at it, and I'd like to see the NFL voters do that as well. And again, AP style voting here, I think it's just 50 votes total. When you look at primarily over the last decade or so, it's heavy quarterback. Watt got a lot of votes one of those years for the MVP as well. So who knows? Who knows how it'll play out? But I am pretty high on Jonathan Taylor having a big year. And there's a balance, certainly. And we know how the Colts utilize their skill players. They like to keep them fresh. They like to be unpredictable week to week. For me, Chris, Taylor's a dude you got to ride. I just think he showed last year that you really, really got to feature him. And the beauty of it is you can still feature Nyheim Hines in a very specific role. And I know Nyheim Hines hates the gadget role. It's a compliment, dude.
Yeah.
It's not a negative term. Like, it might sound negative, but honestly, it helps you out come free agency because you are that gadget piece. And Marlon Mack, I don't know. Is it a series each half for him? Is that too much? Is that too little?
Yeah. We'll
that
see.
is certainly something that's up in the air as well. But I was scrolling through the list a few weeks ago on those MVP odds, and I just couldn't believe how far down the list you go for a running back and how far you go to get to Jonathan Taylor as well. I mean, 39 people in front of him. I mean, Carson Wentz, 26 spots. And yes, when you play quarterback, some of that makes sense, but whew.
Do you know how
Caught my attention.
You mentioned the AP votes. Do you know how, in regards to that, recently here with Miles Turner, someone brought up the fact that there's no one locally or in the market or region that have a vote. Do you know how the votes are distributed for football?
So when I say AP, there's an AP writer in each NFL market, and then obviously some markets that might not have an NFL team, I think, still get a vote.
Okay.
For that, as long as you are in a big enough market. So Mike Merritt is the Associated Press writer here in Indianapolis. I believe he has a vote, but now that you say that, Chris, I almost felt like that was a debate in our media room obviously the Colts haven't had a lot of MVP candidates in recent years, but I believe Merritt has a vote, and I'd assume New York and LA and Chicago, they get a couple of votes. And the beauty of it is, for the most part, I think in the NFL we haven't had too big of gripes, Lamar Jackson, the runaway winner a few years ago.
Right.
You know, Mahomes. I mean, Baltimore and Kansas City aren't huge markets. So, but I believe that is how it goes. Is you get 50 votes total, and then whoever has the most first place votes, period.
Right.
That's your winner, and then they release it from there. So.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know.
Well, we'll see. But like you said, odds to look at.
Yeah, you know what? Odds to look at. You know, I can't imagine Devontae Smith's odds were great this time last year. And hell, Lamar Jackson's odds a couple years ago probably weren't great as well. So if you're looking for a little scratch that's not AFC South, you know, Super Bowl related, something like that, there you go.
Give it a shot.
Yeah, why not?
All right, Twitter questions.
Okay.
Start with Michelle. Where does Carson Wentz rank as far as football IQ? I think we as Colts fans are pretty used to cerebral quarterbacks. So on a scale from Peyton Manning to Jacoby Brissett, where does he stand?
Interesting. It's a good one, Michelle. You know, I think this. Let's go back to 2016, Chris. Eagles trade up twice. They're in love with the quarterback. Frank Reich is obsessed with a particular quarterback. To earn obsession of Frank Reich, you need to be intelligent. Like, that is, you know, some people might be like, oh, yeah, I like that dude because he's fun to drink with. I like that dude because he makes me laugh. If you're going to hang out with Frank Reich, you got to be smart.
Yep.
You know, that's the big thing there. So it takes a lot to impress Frank Reich. So I think from a pure football IQ, and honestly, for those that are just bored at work right now and everyone is on vacation and you're looking to pass the time, if I'm not mistaken, the video is still out there of the Eagles released it of Carson Wentz at the combine in their suite on the whiteboard,
Okay.
breaking down some film. So the Eagles just unbelievable digital access that they provide. Obviously, they waited till after Carson Wentz was the pick, but Reich is in that room. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think Reich says anything. I think he just observes the whole time. And Doug Peterson and I think Press Taylor might have made some comments. I forget who else. In there had some comments, but it's a little bit of insight into like what they saw in Carson Wentz coming out of North Dakota State. What I'm getting at here is he's smart in the classroom. Like, I think it's 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 sort of
Right.
football IQ. I will say this. When I watch him on the field, and yes, a little bit of this is 2020 film, I don't think that translates as smoothly. Now, it's difficult to translate classroom IQ to going back to my earlier comment about the red jersey in the preseason. I mean, holy shit. Of course it's difficult to be like, oh, yeah, here I am standing in the pocket. 300-pound men are trying to break me in half. And if that route goes out, if that coverage is this way, yeah, you do.
Right.
Yeah, like, of course, that's hard to simulate and make a smooth process. But I don't see it, Chris, with him as clearly as I see it with Rivers, if that makes sense. I feel like Phillip Rivers, 9 or 10 in the classroom, and that's pretty close to what it is in the field. With Wentz, I don't see that as transferable. Now, can you get back to that? Can you simplify things a little bit more? Can you get him in, I don't know, more of stuff that he really wants to run and really believes in and has a great understanding of the route concepts and where he needs to be drop-wise and all those things, protection-wise certainly. Those are questions that the Colts are going to have to answer. So I think, Michelle, he's really smart, really, really smart. But that turned onto the football field, I don't think it's as there. Now, I mean, this is not a dumb QB on the field. Like, I'm not getting down that road by any means. It's just not as quick of a processor as maybe he once was.
Yeah, you're hoping with Frank and the offensive talent that we have, that's kind of his cheat sheet.
Yeah.
He gets a little cheat sheet on the field.
Are you suggesting you were a cheater at Guerin Catholic High School?
Listen, you got to do what you got to do to graduate. That's all I'm going to say.
You know, I think high school, the phrase you use, very similar to the first week of the NCAA tournament, survive and advance.
Yes, exactly.
Survive and advance. Rosie Bowe, don't listen to this podcast.
Let's go to Lunar. Hey, love the show. Who do you think is more likely to break out this year? Big Mo Alley Cox or Paris Campbell?
Oh, okay, Lunar. Thank you. I'd say if healthy, it's definitely Campbell. And I also think it's kind of hard for a tight end to break out. And a little bit, it's just kind of like the position they play. Like, I felt like Mo Alley Cox had a really good September last year, kind of a semi-breakout. But like the higher floor would obviously be Allie Cox if you're going to look at these two. I feel like with Mo, he is so important for the future at tight end. We don't talk about tight end in the same light if we talk about other positions on this football team. But, man, if he can show you something, because he can be a 3-down tight end.
Yeah.
And he's much more of a, Kylan Granson, Chris, he's more like of your Komoko Ture, of a little bit specialty, a little bit more of, he can help you out, but he can't help you out in 10 different ways necessarily. And what I'm getting at is just the balance of the run game and the pass game there. So, I think Mo is so big for the future. He's older. I want to say 27, 28, which I think might surprise a few people. But you got to remember, pretty young in football.
Yes,
life.
yeah.
So, if healthy, the more likely one is definitely Campbell. But obviously a little bit more consistency. And Mo's battled a lot of injuries. I think Mo's played through a good amount of injuries as well. Thanks for sending, Lunar.
It was funny, and it was typical Colts. Did you see the TMZ Sports interview with Mo Alley Cox?
No.
TMZ typically, they're catching someone on the street.
Drive-bys.
It's clickbait. It was just like a generic 2-minute conversation with him.
Oh, really?
We're with Mo Alley Cox. What do you think of Carson Wentz?
Like sitting down or
no? Like he was walking down the street, and a TMZ guy or someone who sold the video to TMZ recognized him. And what do you think of Carson Wentz? He's a great guy. We've already thrown the ball around a couple times. We're going to meet back up again.
That's
hilarious. This is not TMZ.
No.
You expect to click it and hear some slander or something crazy.
Right.
It was just like, no, just
Carson Wentz is a noodle arm.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz is the greatest arm in the NFL history. Yeah.
Just a super nice guy.
Yeah, he definitely seems like a really nice guy. I always loved watching him at VCU.
Yeah.
Just tenacious rebounder on some of those Shaka Smart, Will Wade teams. And I think it's a contract year for him. So, big for him.
All right, this one comes from Jason. What starter do you see being the most in danger of losing his spot to a late roster cut or added player?
Okay. That's a good one, Jason. Chris, I would say it's pretty rare to see a team go outside their roster at the end of the preseason for a week 1 starter. Now, obviously not injury related, but how many times do you really cut a guy and then you're going again, this waiver claim is going to start on Sunday against the Seattle Seahawks? You don't typically see it. Certainly you don't see it for good football teams, which you would hope the Colts would be a good football team. Offense, I don't see any, man. I really don't. Enough depth on the offensive line that I think you have enough in-house options. If Sam Tevy just looks like me at left tackle, okay, Will Holden or Julian Davenport maybe, as scary as that might sound to some people. Defensively, maybe, and I really stress the maybe defensive end. But still, even there, I think, Isaac Rochelle, Tyquan Lewis, Al-Qadim Muhammad, Kwity Pet, I think you got enough in-house guys that you would try there. Maybe a third linebacker, maybe a third corner. But again, that's not necessarily every down sort of player there. Zaire Franklin is your third down linebacker, who they love and stands for everything that they want, but that is a name that I'd probably. But still, it's just.
Yeah.
I to be honest with you, Jason, I'd be surprised if the 90-man roster we see enter training camp, if your 22 starters don't come off that roster come September, whatever it is, 15th, 14th. When is the first game? Seahawks?
Yes.
September 12th. Yeah, this year.
This one comes from Paul. Last year, the Colts brought in a fullback but didn't implement the offense due to COVID. With the versatility they have at running back, how likely is it that they try a 2 running back system this year, or what other formations are possible? Thank you for your insight on the Colts.
I don't think anything gets me more excited, Chris, than fullback questions. I love fullback. I want Rosie Bowe to be a fullback at Navy.
That's football, man.
I want her to line up in the wishbone. I want her to get a big first down in the snow against Army and for me to go nuts in the crowd. Sure, I want Rosie Bo to be happy more than anything else, but if she wants to be a fullback, her father will have full support.
You'll be like Little Giants.
Sure.
Be the head coach. Let's go.
100%. Talk about an underrated movie. You can do anything you set your mind to, Rosie. And if you want to be a fullback, Daddy would love that. So last year, I forgot about the fullback. Remember Roosevelt Nix?
Yep.
The old fullback. Great fullback name, by the way, as well. I don't know if Rosie is a great fullback name, but hey, we can make things work. Rosemarie is her full name. We can go there. Last year the Colts used a COVID excuse, kind of like, oh, not enough practices to implement a fullback. I feel like that sounded good, for a PR, and who cares? I don't think we were freaking out too much about Roosevelt Nix being cut. I feel like, Chris, that several playoff teams have fullbacks. Like I'm thinking of Sherman for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I feel like Buffalo had a fullback. The Colts really don't have a fullback. They just tried the H-back sort of thing. San Francisco's got the use check guy.
Yep.
I don't know. I feel like I've seen fullbacks on playoff-type teams that make a run. To your point, Paul, about other first, I don't think we'll see a fullback. I just don't. I think they'll implement a fourth tight end or a third tight end, and that'll be your fullback. I would like to see more two running back packages. It goes back to the Jonathan Taylor talk earlier. Formation personnel groupings, that's where I see things growing a little bit. And I want to see whether it's Wildcat or whatever. I just think when you put a 21 in Hines and a 28 in Taylor and you put those two in a huddle, it just makes the defense think a little bit. I know Jonathan Taylor had a couple big drops in that Buffalo game. If I'm not mistaken, maybe only had one. For some reason, I think he had two. He caught the ball really, really well in the regular season.
Yes, he did.
Really, really well. And, dude, that guy downhill, 230 on a screen, that's a 4.3 speed in the open field, and, hide the children if he comes downhill. So that's what I want to see more of putting those two in the huddle and just creating that seed of doubt is the phrase you always hear. Create the seed of doubt into opposing defense.
Yes, I agree. This next one comes from Matt.
Every NFL team should have a fullback, Paul. We see it now, international players. I think there's a handful of teams that have to have an international player. I don't really know the background on that, but basically there's 5 or 6 international guys that are on 90-man rosters right now. Every team should have a fullback. It's like the volleyball, the girl that wears the different color shirt.
Libero.
Yeah. Every team's got one.
Yep.
Hey, every team got to have a fullback. Must play their fullback 15 snaps a game.
I love it. We're getting into the old school football.
Hear me out, Roger Goodell.
Which is crazy to say it's old school football, but that is the way we've been trending.
You know me, man. I need an NFL team that runs a wishbone. I need an NBA team that presses 82 nights out of the year. That's what I need in sports.
All right, this one's from Matt. Hey, Kevin, thanks for all the Colts coverage this offseason. It's been great. I've seen some stories that point to the Colts being one of the least vaccinated teams in the league. Not sure if you can speak to those reports or not. Local and state governments have been upping the ante now, offering giveaways to try and get their citizens vaccinated. Could you see the NFL entertaining an idea of offering vaccinated players a one-time cash bonus or something of that nature? I'm not sure if it's high price enough for some of those players, but just a thought. Also, to add to this, will the Colts tell us who is vaccinated, or will we have to see who's wearing masks during camp?
Boy, tons of relevant questions here. Tons of relevant questions. Someone else sent in a similar question. The name escapes me, but I did want to mention that. What I know is this. The Colts do have low numbers compared to teams around the NFL. In terms of who and what, I don't know that. Obviously, you can run to HIPAA for, I think, a lot of that stuff, or just players, frankly, probably don't want to share. Now, judging by Darius Leonard on social media, I would be fair to guess he is not vaccinated with some of the stuff that he has put out there. I know DeForest Buckner is vaccinated. I don't know if people care about that or if people don't care about that, but I know Buckner was, I got a young kid, and my wife and I felt like it's good to get vaccinated. So there you go. Two leaders of the football team, and obviously two very different sorts of opinions. Will the Colts tell us who's vaccinated? I would say no. I'd be stunned if they did. Will we need to wait to camp to see who's masked up? Yeah. Same thing with the coaching staff.
Right.
I guess that you'd throw in there as well. where I sit at it from, and I'm sure we've got listeners to this podcast that are staunch vaxxers and staunch anti-vaxxers. Like, that's just welcome to America here in 2021. I cannot get out of my brain, Chris, that Titans game last year, where in the most important game of the season, and again, COVID last year, a lot different than COVID this year.
Yeah.
But COVID last year, you've got Danico Autry symptomatic. You've got DeForest Buckner asymptomatic. And you've got Jonathan Taylor close contact with his girlfriend. They all missed that game. And obviously you didn't have the vaccine last year, so it's much, much different. But, and then in your own building, you get taken to the woodshed, really, by the Titans and what happened at the end of the season.
Yeah.
That was the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to each their own, but I feel very confident saying this. If you don't want to get vaccinated, you are hurting your football team, like point blank period. Now, some people would say, I don't give a shit about that. I rather care about what I believe in and this and that. Okay, fine. Like, I'm not, obviously, it's everyone's own opinion on it. My opinion is I'm vaccinated. I think it makes a lot of sense. When you look at just the protocols to, like, work in the NFL this year, you could stick a lot of things in my arm. I need to probably preface by what I said there. That was dangerous. But you could stick a lot of things in my arm, and I'd probably say, go ahead. And that means I get to sit with my friends at lunch. I don't have to travel separately to games. I don't have to get tested every day. Like, I mean, I got tested, whatever it was, 5 days a week for, X amount of months last year, and it was not ideal. Now, was there a blessing in that you had kind of that peace of mind? Sure, but it was not ideal. So I don't need or want, and you guys certainly aren't listening to this, for my thoughts on it. So I won't go down any sort of those paths, but I think we can sit here and say the Colts don't have great numbers. We'll see how things have changed. Has the John Rahm situation, the Chris Paul situation, has just a sense of urgency of, obviously if you want to be fully vaccinated, the 2 weeks out, you got to start that kind of in mid-June. Has that led to more people? I don't imagine the NFL is going to entertain the cash bonus. I think the NFL's carrot they're dangling is life with the vaccine, life without the vaccine. And it's like pledgeship versus you're in the fraternity. It is almost how, like, you look at life for NFL players vaccinated or not. So, yeah, Matt, it's a storyline that I hate that we're going to have to talk about, but we are.
That's the reality right now.
And this is where we're at. So we'll see how things play out here in the next few weeks and try to get as clear of a picture as we can.
Very informative answer. Very informative question. Let's jump to something.
And just one last thing, Chris.
Go ahead.
I think going back to that Titans game last year, like, that is the reality for your unvaccinated players. If I have it correct, I need to double check that. But basically, I think if you're vaccinated, you'd get tested once every 2 weeks, I want to say.
Okay.
If you're unvaccinated, you're getting tested every single day. And the close contacts, like, if Mrs. Leonard tests positive, then all of a sudden Darius is out for, I forget what it is. I want to say it's 5 days. That's what happened with Taylor last year. So, and the whole NC State thing, I mean, we saw that in the College World Series, and, vaccinated players are testing positive. So, trust me, it's not a crystal clear process, obviously. I think we all know that now, over a year into it. But, yeah. Thanks for the question, Matt. I know it's on a lot of people's minds. I haven't touched on it fully. So, yeah.
But like you said, it's something that it's a reality right now, and it's just going to have to be talked about.
Yeah. And shout out, go ahead.
Let's go to a lighthearted topic.
Okay.
We got a question from Aaron. Madden's coming out.
Oh.
He wants to know Madden ratings. I don't know if you have a console. I don't know how often you play, Kevin. It's been a while for me since I feel like the game has not changed much in the last 7 or so years. But he wants to list a couple offensive players and a couple defensive players and see what you think their Madden grade is going to be when that game comes out.
Okay. Before you name the players, I will side with you. Full transparency, I don't think I've played Madden. Dude, I haven't picked up the stick since maybe sophomore year of college.
Yeah.
So I am 31, about to be 32. It's been maybe 11, 12 years. And Ryan Harris, freshman year, dorm room, maybe he brought Madden down, and I said, dude, you want to get your ass kicked?
Yep.
Here we go.
Some pizza, some beer, a little
let's
Madden.
Go. Right, exactly. I really hope, though, that if Rosie or any of our, God willing, future children want to play video games, I hope I still know what I'm doing. I don't think I will, and that's a long time. I might need to, knock off some rust.
I don't know, man. The way kids are now, my nephew, he's like, "You want to play Fortnite?"
Dude,
I'm hiding in
no
a bush. Like, I'll just wait.
Yeah, I'm like, you got Mario Tennis? You
Yeah.
know? I'm like, good Toad Race on Rainbow Road?
Yeah, let's pick up some Mario Kart. I can play there.
Yeah, right. Okay, so he's throwing players at us?
He's going to throw some players. You
All right.
want me to go one-on-one? You want me to list them?
Yeah, let's go one-on-one.
Okay, first up, Carson Wentz.
84.
That's exactly what I had him at.
Really?
Okay.
Jeez.
DeForest Buckner.
Ooh, 96.
Okay, I was thinking 95. We're
Okay, all right.
Listen,
Jeez.
we're on pace. We still got it.
You and I are on the same page.
Quentin Nelson.
99.
Okay.
Was that too high? Are there 99s in the game?
There's a few, I think a couple hundreds. I don't know. Again.
Oh, wow.
I'm showing my age.
Well, I mean, I'm going Nelson as high as I can.
Okay. Jonathan Taylor.
87, but that arrow's pointing up.
All right, I have him at 86. Darius Leonard.
Boy, I'd have him high. 90, 95.
Okay. Kenny Moore.
90.
Michael Pittman Jr.
Are these too high? Pittman's got to be low. He's got to be low 80s, 80, 83. But,
yeah,
arrow pointing straight up.
Kenny might be a little high, but I think that's just based on the fact that, again, the national people
Right.
and the guys that make the video games, not always knowing who people like Kenny Moore are.
Yeah. Is the voice of Madden still the Butler guy, Brendan Gaudin? Do you know?
I think it's Charles Davis, and it might be him.
Really?
Yeah.
He was at that outing last week. I should have.
Because he went down to Georgia Tech, correct?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, after the Butler Final Four runs. And
Yep.
then, yeah. And speaking of Wentz and Buckner, I was listening to something with Buckner a few weeks back, and he said that he had the Wentz family over to dinner.
Awesome.
So I think Carson's got a young girl, and
Yes.
I believe they're expecting number 2. Did I see that?
Yes.
announcement?
Yep.
So, yeah. Who knows? Maybe one day, a little softball team, Rosie Bowe, baby Wentz and baby Buckner.
Get a little luck action in there as well.
Oh, I forgot about Lucy Luck. Good call on that.
All right, question from Brian. Recently, the Colts have not won a division, have not won a playoff game, and they only got into the playoffs last year due to the fact that the NFL added a team. Why are they considered one of the better teams in the AFC? I hope they are, but it just seems like they have to earn it by the play on the field rather than paperwork in the locker room.
Ooh. Okay. Well, Brian, I think this past success is not the sole barometer for. Gosh, I feel like I sound like a CEO. Past success is not the sole barometer for future results. I don't know, something like that. Gosh, nothing says you've had like a bad year and then you stand up in that first meeting next year and you're like, follow me, I'm the leader, blah blah blah. But like in all seriousness, I mean, you say that every year. Like, this team returns X amount of starters. They brought in these sorts of recruits. So, yes, I mean, if you're talking about past success, Brian, what? You were 7th in the AFC this year. You were, boy, I'm willing to guess, I don't know, 9th or 10th 2 years ago in the AFC. Now, the year before that, Frank Reich's first year, you didn't win the division, but you were one of the final 4 teams.
Yeah.
So you were 4th in the AFC that year. So I guess if you average that out, you've been a slightly above average AFC team in the Frank Reich era. But, I also think, like, you look at Cleveland, you're like, well, Cleveland's past success isn't really there besides last year, but I think we all consider Cleveland a pretty good team. I wasn't watching it, but I saw it behind in our radio studio this morning that somebody called Cleveland the most well-rounded team in the NFL right now. I mean, I think people are super high in the AFC.
Yes.
I think it's a really good conference. So I think fans should have reason for optimism, but at the same time, like, you've got to prove it. Like, this is what the offseason is kind of all about here. I mean, right now, yes, this regime has been a slightly above average AFC team. Like, you can totally state that. But you feel like there's been a few roster tweaks, and that can lead to the Colts being a good AFC team. So, yeah, I mean, I understand people's reasons for optimism, but I think we've accurately stated it that right now, up to this point, the Reich Ballard era on the field has not been a massive success by any means. You haven't won a division. You've only won one playoff game. So those are results that you just have to see change.
This one comes from Josh. When we see the defense flash like they have in so many halves this past season, is that personnel outshining the scheme? Matt Eberflus got floated for some head coaching jobs again, and I'm wondering if leaving might be the best outcome. Don't think we'd ever fire him after an 11-5 season, nor does he deserve to be fired, but him moving on and Chris Ballard finding the right coach for the personnel that he has acquired might be what unlocks a potential elite defense. Am I underestimating Frank Reich's influence on the schematic decision on defense, or am I just like everyone else, grasping for straws, trying to figure out why this keeps happening?
Yeah, it's a good question, Josh. Well, let me start there. Chris Ballard wanted Matt Eberflus. This is the Rod Marinelli tree. If we remember, which a lot of you want to block it out, which is perfectly fine and understandable. He was one of the 3 assistants under Josh McDaniels. Gouge, gone. And homeboy, Fair, the D-line coach, also gone as well. So Flus is the last one standing from the old Josh McDaniels era, very similar to the George O'Leary era up in South Bend. And Frank was really content with it. I remember Joey and I having this conversation back when Frank was hired. And I'm thinking to myself, and Frank had familiarity with the Eberflus system, which obviously Marinelli, Tampa 2, those sorts of things, being in the same division, Philly, Dallas, even though Flus wasn't calling the plays there. But I remember Joey and I saying, like, dude, if I've got one crack at being an NFL head coach, which, for the most part, a lot of coaches only have one crack at it, I want to go down swinging with who I have mapped out as my coordinators. But Frank Reich is such a nice human being. I think he was just like, I'm going Flus. And also, I think he believed in him as well. Frank, of course, having the history in this defense, being on staffs. I would like a little bit more schematically. I would. But no, I don't think Frank is heavily involved on the schematic decisions defensively. Certainly not within a game. And maybe a little bit game planning each week, but not a ton. So, I do think this defense, there is a little bit more there for this unit. I think there's some impactful players at every level. We've talked about the pass rush, I think, being the most important aspect, non-Carson Wentz division for the 2021 season. But this is a debate that we've had before. There's a lot of strong characteristics about this defense. They're tremendous against the run. I do think the playing with great effort, as much as like elementary that sounds, they buy into it and they do play with great effort. So I do think there's something there. But I also think something is missing a little bit in just being a little bit more schematic, being a little bit more week to week. I want to move my own chess pieces, those sorts of things that I think to truly be late January, you got to start to see that.
All right, 4 more. Louisiana guy is curious, Kevin, what do you think our move will be at quarterback if Carson Wentz doesn't pan out? And do you think we will regret not drafting a rookie from this year's draft class? Also, what's your take on the Aaron Rodgers situation? And would Chris Ballard go after him if it came down to do it regardless of the cost? Thanks, and love the hard work that you and Chris do weekly.
Thank you for that, Louisiana guy. Boy, this is a tough one. It's really impossible to predict a lot of this. I think Justin Fields will be good, Chris. I guess let me start there when you talk about trading up. I believe I said this before in the podcast. If you gave Chris Ballard a magic 8 ball and you would have told him on draft night Justin Fields would be there at 10, 11, whatever he ended up going. I think part of me believes the Colts would have sat out Carson Wentz and traded up for Fields. Now that's me, just strictly talking gut there. But I also sit here, and as much as I think Fields will work out, I think Carson Wentz is going to work out. Now, is he going to work out to the level of like, boom, top 5 QB, and here come a bunch of Super Bowls? I got to see a little bit more. But I'm going to be shocked if Carson Wentz looks like the dude we saw last year. Just shocked. So, and hindsight is so 2020 with this. The move at QB, if Wentz doesn't pan out, as much as you would like to see, like if all of a sudden like Carson Wentz just looks like whatever, you'd love to see Eason get some reps, but I don't really see that happening. So therefore I'm going to bump it up and say probably the draft.
Okay.
You got to look towards that. And again, I don't think that's something that you want to acknowledge, you want to look towards. But, yeah, as far as Aaron Rodgers, that dude's a wild human. He really is.
He's different.
He's different.
Marches to the beat of his own drum for
Dude,
sure.
when you're an elite athlete, you are different. Tom Brady's weird. Aaron Rodgers is weird. Peyton Manning's weird. I'm weird. I mean, there's a lot of... Now, obviously, the fact that I just included myself in a sentence with all those people is astonishing. So feel free to turn off the podcast. But you know what I'm getting at. We're all weird to a degree here. Rodgers married Danica. That's or did he marry her or dated her?
I don't know if they were engaged or not.
All I know is that's crazy and crazy.
Yeah, those weren't ever going to mix, I don't think.
Yeah. The Colts have I just don't think the Colts have a trade package either.
Yeah, no.
I guess if you throw in Wentz, maybe. But, who knows? Do the Packers want Wentz? I don't. Yeah.
That was a little surprising when you were listing off the odds earlier. Aaron's not even on a team right now. Well, technically he is, and you had him at third on MVP or second with Brady on MVP.
I thought it was Josh Allen and Brady.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find that real fast.
I thought you had Rodgers up there. I could be mistaken.
No, yeah. You are right. Rodgers and Allen were 10-1, and Tom Brady was 12-1.
Nuts. Okay, for Mitch, semi-serious question / comment for the podcast.
Okay.
How in the world are you going to keep up with the weekly content when the team is basically underground for the next month? I'm serious. It has to be a huge challenge, and I'm curious about your process. As always, thanks for the good work.
Oh, Mitch, have faith in me, Mitch. I do always have these freak out moments, like right now, late June, early July, of like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna say? And look, shorter pods, but we're still gonna give you a little bit of goods. I feel like I have a decent understanding of. I know I'm not the best writer. I know I'm not like the best entertaining presence on the mic. So what I try to do here and what we try to do with our content is just be consistent. You guys have heard me say before, like informative, available, interactive.
Yep.
Like those are kind of the three things I always come back to. And I think if you like compare our coverage to other outlets, we are producing the most routine content, on a very consistent basis. We talk about people that cover the team on a daily basis. So I make a running list throughout the year of time, the stuff that I'm like, oh, that's not very time sensitive. I can save that for June and July. And I find myself, I know there are a lot of people that just check out, and we see the numbers. Like our June podcast are not listened as much as what our August podcast will be when training camp. It's still, pretty good numbers. I'm pleased with them, but we know people check us out, which I totally understand. I am someone that, though, I want to read Notre Dame stuff every single day. Like that's just how I'm wired, and I know there's Colts fans that are out there like that. So we are there for you, and if you want to listen to 45 minutes of Colts talk in late June, here you go. So we're gonna keep it coming, and we will. I know today it was kind of a cheesy, topic, the whole Taylor MVP. I do want to get into like our annual stuff of most indispensable Colts that we always get into. Colts with the most pressure on them. Camp storylines, position battles. Like we'll get into some of that in July. And like I know a lot of that might seem clickbaity. It's not clickbaity to me because like that's real. Like who's got pressure on them this year? Like who's in the contract? Who means a lot to their position groups? Those things. So, we're gonna keep it coming, Mitch. Don't you worry about it. If I'm traveling with the family, we'll bring Ross Lubbers out of the bullpen and give Chris a well-deserved break.
Ross always does a great job.
Yeah, we can't be feeding his ego too much now. Come on now.
All right, from Zach. Hey, Kevin, and this will go to your AFC point. All the playoff situations have me thinking. As a Canadian, the CFL has a system in place for teams to cross over for the playoffs. What do you think about the NFL implementing that kind of system of where if a team that was not to make the playoffs in the AFC has a better record than an NFC, that they would go through that route? Could make for an interesting divisional and Super Bowl, etc.
Oh, boy. Jeez. Yeah, this is talk about summer thinking right here, Zach. I love tradition. Like I hate change. I hate change, and I hated going to 7 playoff teams. I think that's stupid. Like, the regular season's so hard in the NFL. I think the second team should get a bye in each conference. And when you get to like 7 of 16, Chris, in each conference, it's like, hell, it's nearly half.
Yeah.
I hate that about the NBA. 16 of 30 make the playoffs. Like, NFL regular season, man, each Sunday matters a whole lot. Now, don't get me wrong. I got to Saturday and Sunday this year and said, "Oh, you're giving me 3 playoff games?" So I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I don't know. I don't love the cross. I get it, but do you like it? If the NFC to cross over the AFC?
I'm kind of with you. I think it always comes up about every year when there's a team that gets in at 8-8, or there's been teams that gotten in at 7-9, right? And you're looking at some other divisions where it's like, really, this team is getting, they're kind of getting punished for having the toughest division. But like you said, that's part of it, and that's part of it. So that's why you build your team to not to just try and win your division, but if you win your division, your chances of going to the Super Bowl have just significantly increased.
I feel like we see a lot in the NBA, Chris. The West used to be so much better than the East.
Yeah.
That was a big part of it as well. So, yeah. I appreciate the thinking, Zach. I just don't. I don't love it.
Yeah, I think basketball's a good one because, like you said, there have been years where the scale is very tipped.
Now, that's a little travel, west to east. Obviously, in the NFL, you've got divisions that are all across the country in both conferences.
All right, we're going to wrap things up with a question from Brent. Do they normally allow fans into the training camp scrimmage at Lucas Oil Stadium, the one where they do the offense and the defense?
Okay, so I'm a little confused by this. Training camp scrimmage, and as we were recording this, they just announced the training camp schedule and like fan access. So I do want to read a little bit of that. I'm just kind of going off the Colts app, so we'll touch on that here in just a sec.
Okay.
But, Chris, I can't – correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember the last training camp practice at Lucas Oil. Like, when I think of training camp practices, I always think fans there, unless it's at the team facility. But when they had it at the team facility that one year, I think they did Warren Central maybe for a practice. Like, I just feel like when they do fans, it's come out every day, and the night practices are bigger ones. Now, last year you had COVID, so obviously you didn't have fans there. I know they used to do a spring, like an OTA or a mini camp down at Lucas Oil. And if you come out to practice, folks, it's offense versus defense every day. Now, they're not in full pads every day, but, you will see offense versus defense. So, I can't remember any training camp scrimmage at Lucas Oil, and if there haven't been many. So, I know there's not an annual one by any means. So, yeah, if you want to see the Colts this year, Grand Park and Westfield is your place to go. Let me pull up this. Looks like no COVID restrictions I'm seeing here for fans at all. No screening required, COVID screening for fans. Mask and face coverings will be encouraged, but they will be optional.
Wow.
And a dedicated mask required section will be available for fans in high-risk health categories or who would prefer to sit in a masked area. So I'm not too shocked by any of that. I thought they'd be open to fans. 19 practices featuring a mix of morning, afternoon, and evening and weekend. If they go indoors, fans will not be allowed.
Is that 19 total, including the Panthers when they come to town?
I assume.
Okay.
I'm going to assume that. Looks like Wednesday, July 28th to Thursday, August 19th.
So it starts on my birthday. Let's go.
There you go.
There's a good birthday present.
Colt City's always kind of cool.
Yeah. They do a good job out there. A lot of interactive stuff for kids as well.
Yeah, so this looks – let me see if I can find some times real fast here. So, yeah, this looks pretty good. I should probably check my email as well.
Yeah, and if you've not been up to Grand Park, they've done an amazing job, and then everything around there has exploded as well. It started out –
hell of a facility.
Yeah, it started out kind of in the middle of nowhere, which it still to a degree is. But they've done the city of Westfield has really blossomed around that facility.
Yeah, it really has. It is quite the campus. And like you said earlier, I'm looking forward to the Panthers being in the building.
Yeah.
All right, let me try and dial up. Okay, I got it right here.
All right.
So it looks like they're going to practice in the morning, first 3 days. That's a 10 to about 11:30, 11:45. The weekend, 1 to 2:30. Yeah, I mean, they're practicing mainly mornings is what I'm seeing. So 10 to about 11:30, 11:40 each day. The joint practices, 4 to 6 p.m., both those days.
Okay.
So that's August 12th and 13th. I'm going to fire up a little screenshot here and tweet this out.
And the crazy thing is, Kevin, like I said, a lot of things for kids to do out there anymore, and you should know as your parents, school teachers, they're going back to school at the end of July now.
Right.
If you can get out there the first couple of days, it's probably going to be your first shot before your kids head back to school, and then after that, you'll probably have to attend an evening session.
Yes, that is a great point. I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Or just let them play hooky one day.
Yeah, why not?
Get mom or dad of the year out of the way, midsummer.
Yeah, exactly. Man, now that I'm looking at this, they're going to practice at Grand Park on August 23rd and 24th. I mean, I don't remember camp going that late. That's late, man. I mean, July 28th to August 24th.
Yeah.
Boy. So, yeah, they go I'm seeing here every 3 days, 3-ish days, and then an off day. So 3 to 4 off, 3 to 4 off. So
okay.
Weekend practices, I see a Saturday, a Sunday. I only see 3 weekend practices. Now, remember, once you get in the third week of camp, you start getting preseason games. So that's something to remember as well. Boy, they got a Thirsty Thursday here.
Really?
Geez.
Bringing out some craft.
That's the Panthers practice day. So,
oh boy,
Matt Rule, good luck. Yeah, Moms and Tots day out. There you go.
All right.
Shout out there. All right, well, there you go. Camp schedule. Gotta love it. Again, we'll have that up on the website. And what else? I assume those are all Twitter questions?
Those are all the Twitter questions, yep.
Cool. All right, well, we will get into more of this on next week's podcast, like I said, up on the website. And, yeah, I think that covers everything. So for Chris Presley, I'm Kevin Bowen. Again, everybody have a great 4th of July. We are certainly blessed to be living in this country, and thank you to all of those who have fought for our freedom and continue to do so. And be safe, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week on Kevin's Corner. This has been Kevin Bowen. Thank you for listening to another edition of Kevin's Corner. If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher for the best Colts and Pacers coverage.